Great. Got it. Well, welcome everybody. Happy Friday. Thank you for coming to this comprehensive local needs and assessment meeting for Region G and talking about Perkins funding. So I want to give a big shout out to the education leaders in Region G and to all the meetings that we've had up to this point. I work for the PED. I'm in the College and Career Readiness Bureau, and many of my colleagues are here today, and they'll be with you in our upcoming breakout groups. And I will make a short presentation and before we go into our breakout groups, but I really want to thank Deming for the students that are here today. Really, I really appreciate you taking time out to come, and for any of the students that are here. A special shout out to WNMU, James and Patty, who have been really instrumental. Dave Chandler over at Aldo Leopold, Melissa at Silver City, Gasper there at Deming. You've all been really great. And Sandra Montoya, who's at Cobrae, she's going to be joining us late. So I'm going to just get us started because I think we've got some good things to accomplish in today's meeting. So I'm just going to share my screen and get us started. And just as if I can just also say, I am not monitoring the chat. So if anybody asks any questions, please flag me and I'll be glad to ask any question or answer any of your questions.
We're seeing your spreadsheet. Okay, there we go.
There we go. So you see my screen now, is that right?
Yeah, we see presenter notes on the other side too.
Oh, well then you know what? I don't want to share that side of the screen then. Thank you for letting me know that, everybody. Is that much better?
Yes.
This is the full screen. All right.
Very
Thank you
good.
so much. So I'm really humbled actually to present this. I think the education leaders that are here today and that I'm really just giving voice to are far more qualified to talk about their Perkins funding and their Perkins programs, but I'm going to do my best here to try to give all of you who might be new to understanding some of the funding that's distributed to Region G. I hope I can do a good job at giving you a little bit of background and a little bit of overview. Sorry, I thought certain buttons on my computer would be working, but it's not. There we go. So overall, our agenda, I'm just going to share some of the purpose and intended outcomes, give you a little background and overview of Region G's programs and funding, and then we're going to go to our breakout room for some discussion. And I do say on this screen, you know, we're free to leave directly from the breakout rooms, but we're actually going to come back together. So you'll get a pop-up when you're in your breakout room. You'll see a pop-up when the session's going to, or the breakout room time is going to end, and we'll come together and we'll just share some of our responses so we can all sort of reconvene and see what some of our responses are to some of the questions that we're going to talk about. Well, I thought I would start by saying, you know, the real thing that brings us all together is a desire to see students succeed in college and career readiness. And we all hope to provide the best quality CTE classrooms that are going to prepare our students for the next step, whether it's work, whether it's college, but you know, we really are trying to come together just to create the best quality CTE classrooms we can. Another reason that we come together is that the Perkins 5 Act, which is federal act, it does require us to have, you know, some evidence-based demonstration of ongoing improvement of our career and technical education programs. And there is an official guide here that allows us to reference, you know, part of that compliance. So we're all, coming together as part of that compliance. Another reason is that we really do want to engage the community in school funding decisions. It is part of the act to have this collaborative relationship between industry partners, community partners of all kinds, whether they're students, parents, other individuals who have a, if you will, a stake or, a desire to be more involved and improve, our school programs. We really want them to be involved in spending decisions. And the ultimate goal is that we just want to enable, improvement for schools to, or for enable ways that schools can improve their programs. Now, one of the instruments that we use to provide some of that evidence-based demonstration is something that the Perkins Act calls the Comprehensive Local Needs Assessment. And it really focuses on educator industry partners and stakeholders. It does align with the federal law that's in the Carl D. Perkins Act. And one of the goals is to identify needs that we have, needs that will align with economic priority sectors of our region. And in that, that's going to help determine which CTE programs receive Perkins funding. One of the visions is just to really build and integrate those partnerships together to try to reinforce that high quality programming, again, with an interest to really prepare students for the careers and or, the college pathway of their choice. One of the intended outcomes is we're going to break out into smaller groups because we really do want to have constructive and collaborative discussion, about our CTE programs, what we're doing well, what we're not doing so well, what we can do better, ascertain what some of those needs are, maybe set some targeted goals, begin a conversation for, ongoing collaboration after today. And hopefully we can enable some partnerships with each other and ideas of who we can reach out to that is going to help us improve our programs, to meet the needs that we tend to, or that we'll hopefully be able to identify today. So I want to give you a little background and overview of career and technical education in Region G. Okay. Overall, New Mexico Public Education Department, that's my agency, we've established 10 CTE school regions, and they're there in the graphic on the right, and we've just allocated a letter to a region, so A through G. In each of those regions, they include something that we label as local education agencies. There are public schools, state charters, tribal schools, and Region G comprises of 9 counties, 9 public school districts, has 1 state charter, that's Aldo Leopold there in Silver City, and 1 post-secondary institution, and that's WNMU, Western New Mexico University in Silver City. And so those LEAs, if they have a CTE program of study, they may support in part or in full their programs with federal and state grants. One of the federal grants that we help administer and that the schools that are represented here today are recipients of is the Carl D. Perkins Federal Grant. It's a federal legislative appropriation, and that goes to states to improve their secondary and post-secondary technical and professional programs of study. And to meet eligibility, Perkins funded CTE programs, they must be aligned to identified economic priorities that are based on a labor market index, which is available, and we can share where to get that information with anybody who wants it. And to adhere to a comprehensive local needs assessment, which is what we are taking part of today. Another type of funding that our CTE programs and the schools in this region will receive is the NextGen grant, and that's a state appropriation. It goes to high schools only, so it is not for post-secondary. It is for our high schools, for state charters and for tribal schools as well. And that started in 2019. And it's a 7-year pilot, and we're currently in year 3 of that. We just finished legislation. I don't know if they passed, to go into year 4 because we do have to have an annual review, but I'm hoping with the good news we got today that it did, and that we can continue NextGen in the coming years. And to meet the eligibility of that, we expect 50% of the budget to be identified with those economic priorities of the CLNA, And the other 50% can be aligned with what we call non-priority CTE programs. So that's things that are outside of those identified areas, or what we call CTE supports, like career exploration for our middle schools, work-based learning, so we can have internship or co-op opportunities. CTSOs are our career and technical student organizations, like FFA, for example, is the agricultural CTSO. And then you dual credit supports, so hopefully the state allocation there goes for some very popular and well-needed supports of CTE. So in 2019, we had the last CLNA, and at that time, if you will, the economic priorities for Region G were determined to be skilled trades with a focus on agriculture, mining, and film and media, which the educators think reflects, some of the work needs in the region. Second one is healthcare, and the third one is education. So those are the three. And right now, we are having a spring CLNA, so we are reviewing these, and for now, those three stay until our education leaders confirm that at the close of our CLNA review. And then to give you a little background on the CTE programs that we currently have funded, thought I would at least share with you that the Perkins grant, or the federally funded programs, in 2021 and 2022, that's this fiscal year, there's almost, $500,000 that goes to Region G, just shy of $500,000. And those fund our welding programs in our participating schools, media production, or film, pre-nursing, and for our post-secondary, they're allocating the Perkins funding to their welding program. And that's just this year. It changes from year to year. So just this year, these were the programs that were funded. And then complementary or supplementary to that is that Next Gen grant. So just over $250,267, almost 268,000. That went to a few more programs. Lay a choice, meaning it's for a program that's outside the skilled trades or healthcare or education. And CTE supports, such as career exploration for our middle schools, the work-based learning opportunities, and our dual credit supports. They also allocated funding to different construction programs of study, residential, mixed trades, the media, allied health, biotech, sustainable ag, of course, more welding. So allocating state funding to welding as well as using federal funding for welding, and then some automotive programs. So these were the programs that we funded this year with the money that was allocated. Now, in our previous meetings, our Region G education leaders really find that the CTE programs and the federal funding isn't just all about programs. It really is about the people in them, and that's the students. So they want to put a face, to some of these figures and facts, and not just data, but that, our student and the student engagement really does matter. And so we're grateful that some of the students are here today, because you do really, you'll help us see that, help us be able to, you'll give us some feedback on where we can make improvements. The work-based learning programs, the students really do take advantage of that, and they are engaged and find those to be very opportunistic. Here on the right are a couple of photos from Deming. They have both in-class and live broadcast programs. That live broadcast is what I would consider, real world experience for our students who are enrolled in those programs. TRC has had a vibrant film program in the past. WNMU has a vibrant welding program and dual credit programs for secondary welding. And of course, Kmato has their welding and carpentry programs, which the students have found very valuable in preparing them for the next step. Some other programs are the applied technologies at WNMU. We got some health programs like pre-nursing, the CNA programs, phlebotomy, biotech. And part of the funding there on the top right is some students who have earned certifications, industry recognized credentials are very important. And almost every program of study that's funded has some sort of certification, if you will, for students to attain before they graduate. And then the lower right here, some programs of study in fields with non-traditional students. That's something that I know all of our educators take pride in. And by non-traditional, what we mean by that is, for example, females that might engage with welding or construction, and males who might enroll in our nursing programs. So we take a lot of pride in keeping those fields of study open for any and all students. But I'd share with you just some, some of the participation rate. Region G, the schools have almost 3/4 of their students participating in CTE. And that is exceptional. It's about 10% higher than the state average. So obviously CTE has a very prominent place in secondary and post-secondary education in Region G. And the programs that the students tend to participate in, this is just a table here to show you, on the left there, they have the highest participation rate in ag and natural resources, manufacturing, architecture and construction, hospitality and tourism, business management. These are all, if you will, programs of study with high participation rates. The dark blue is what we call concentrators, and concentrators take 2 or more courses. You become a participant in CTE as soon as you take 1 course. And if you take more than that, 2 or more courses, you'll concentrate in CTE as a high school student. And we're hoping that we can get some of those numbers up for students once they start participating. We want them to complete their programs. But this is just a slide to help you see what subject areas our students tend to engage with or participate in the most or the least, by virtue. And then the students that go on to take on 2 or more classes here, this is just a pie chart, but ag, about 50% of those who participate in an ag course tend to concentrate. And then again, in manufacturing also has a high percentage of, or higher percentage of concentration. And then the list goes down from there. I'm happy to go over that more in detail with anybody that wants to, later on or after this meeting today. So some of the way that the Perkins or the federal funding Perkins grant asks us to monitor program performance is, of course, by reporting some data. So that is a federal requirement. And our state plan for CTE, we do consider all of them to be a best practice for what our programs will include. And I'll share with you 3 of them. 3 areas that we focus on here in New Mexico. We place a high priority for all of our CTE students to hopefully have access to and engagement with and completion of dual credit courses, work-based learning opportunities, and of course, earning any industry recognized credential in their program of study. And I'll share with you just some of the accomplishment. This is taken from 2019, so this is pre-pandemic, pre-COVID numbers. But what is dual credit? Dual credit is when a high school CTE student earns a college credit for successful completion of CTE courses taught by a certified high school instructor. So they can, earn college credit while they're in high school. And, we have 3/4 of students participating in CTE, but 27% of them end up in dual credit courses. So we're hoping to get that number up in the years ahead. Then in work-based learning, the Perkins Act defines that as it enables high school CTE students to gain experience through job training, apprenticeships, internships, co-ops, and that sort of thing in the CTE pathway. And in 2019, about 1/4 of our students were reported as being enrolled in some sort of work-based learning course in their program. And then with certification and credentials, we regard a certification as any industry recognized credential that the students will earn while they're still in high school. And so we're always hoping to learn what industry specific credentials are best for our students, depending on what program they are in. Some of the credentials that students can earn for those who are in our multimedia courses, they tend to get a lot of Adobe certification. Our welding or skilled trades might get certifications in HVAC or AWS. Anybody in IT might get like Oracle certification. Any of our healthcare, even I just had a teacher the other day say this, when my nursing students get CPR certification, or, is that a credential that we can mark as earned? And it definitely is, because it's something that's required for that field, and it actually improves the students' employability skills. So Region G performed right around 18% in 2019, and again, something we'd like to improve upon in the years ahead. So overall, that's some of the data, but of course, what I can hopefully adequately represent for our education leaders that are here today, it's really the students that we do it for, their Region G's future. And, our students and graduates, they really depend on the quality and the kind of educator industry community partnerships that we develop for them and with them, alongside of them. They're equally a resource in our eyes. So that's the background there for Region G. We're going to go into breakout groups, and the questions we have created for you are going to revolve around trying to get feedback on those 3 areas of focus, which are the dual credit opportunities, the certification opportunities, and work-based learning opportunities. We're really hoping you can help us better understand what's most promising for opportunities to provide students, where the challenges lie, and how we can collaborate better to make improvements to our programs along the way, and how we can create new partnerships. So we look forward to your feedback, advice, and guidance. There will be a note taker in each room. The note taker will share his or her screen, and you'll be able to see the questions. And as you're responding to the questions, they'll try to document your responses. And hopefully all those responses will just generate more questions and ideas. I hope everybody will really feel engaged and that you belong here. You were not invited to come here today for some a ubiquitous reason. We want you to be seen, and we want you to be heard. And I hope I can, you can feel my energy through the screen to say, we really do want you to, open up and really be honest with us about your experiences and your ideas. Because what you share today, we hope we can build upon in the coming weeks and months and even years ahead. I'll create a summary report, because we'll have the same questions to all 3 groups, and I'll aggregate that and provide a summary report to anybody that wants one.
Susan.
It's all yours, Susan.
I know, but I wasn't planning on doing this, so I feel, just we'll go with breakout group one. Do you want to share some of the highlights for, in response to some of the questions? How about, let me try to facilitate a little bit better. So what stood out in your group for, some of the promising opportunities for industry recognized credentials? And or anything you want to respond to, with either dual credit, work-based learning, some of the best opportunities and or challenges.
Anybody from our group want to share? Toby, Louisa? Everybody's camera shy. So our group talked a lot about how to encourage students in the earlier age. Some of that conversation went on, getting them started, not waiting till they're in high school, but getting them interested in early. How can you encourage students about careers at earlier age? What educating schools, what are the industry needs in the community? With COVID hitting, there's some changes that have happened to job careers. I mean, look at me, I'm working at home. Some of you guys work at home. And now there's more flexibility for that. So there's those opportunities that weren't there before for students to know about job opportunities to work at home. They don't have to leave their home. They can stay home and do a lot of work from their homes. I also gave them information about how the industry people and businesses are willing to go out to the schools and if they to go talk to students about the job opportunities, not what the job. There's all these jobs and that's it, but what the job really entails. There was a really good point that right at the last somebody mentioned schools districts going to other school districts and encouraging students that way. Students talking to the elementary level students, the high school going to the elementary and saying, hey, we have this career path. When you go to high school, you can choose this career and this is, you can weld and this is a welding machine and this, or someone said that their elementary went to the high school and checked out the career paths at the high school. So that was a cool thing too. As far as advisor, getting people, who should be involved in the advisory committees, we're talking about administrators, teachers, community leaders, post-secondary deans, such as CNA program people, and those things that you're doing at the schools, inviting those type of people to your advisory committees, including the students. That can help. I mean, you want feedback from the students. It's apparent that they can sometimes give you better feedback because they're the student, right? So there was some of that conversation going on in our group. Let's see what else. On the dual credits, there was the struggle. Some of the struggles that the schools, Silver Deming and Cobre, tend to face is the students having to pay the fee to get into that, like welding, they have to pay the $35 or whatever it is. Is there if CTE maybe if they can use some funding or do some type of scholarship for those students to help pay for them and encourage them, we have a scholarship, you want to apply, come to our career paths, and whatever the core requirements would be. But we know we have low-income students all across our state, so it would help them do that and encourage them to stay in that program if there was some type of funding source or scholarships for those students to stay in. As a teacher, you want to pull out the $35 and how
I know.
they're struggling at home. So, oh gosh, this is tough. So that was some of the other things that we talked about. Group
you,
two is
Fred.
next.
Excuse me, I'm about to sneeze.
We had a chance to listen from the student and was wonderful to have just a bit of time, and it seemed like he was a welding student and involved with already a concentrator. So he was really enjoying the coursework. He was participating in dual credit and had already his OSHA certification and found value in that having the certificate was meaningful because it will help get them in the door. Even if they go directly from high school, they'll at least have that would open an opportunity for them. And that he did recognize that some students go on and get their associates additional coursework at the post-secondary. But he also suggested it would be super cool, and he lit up when we started talking about employer involvement in the classroom with coming up with some challenges for the students to talk with the students, just to be involved in some way with the students. So that was something that I think would strengthen in his estimation. So there was feedback from the student, and I don't know what else I may have missed on his part. Anybody from the team?
Yeah, he did talk about employer going to the employer job site and being able to have that experience and how that could get a student excited about going to actually to the site or several job sites. I remember him saying that.
Great. I know in group 3 or in breakout room 2, excuse me, we also valued, Arnett's feedback. She was a pre-nursing student, and she found that extremely valuable. And one of the reasons she found that placement and that experience valuable, along with the certifications she receives, is because it allows her to go anywhere of her choice. And she was saying that students really do think globally these days, not regionally, not locally. Yes, locally is okay, but they certainly want an opportunity. They want their high school, even in Little Deming, to prepare them to go where their dreams take them, whether it's California, New York, China, Australia. They have a global mindset, so they found that equally as valuable. How about some feedback on one way that educators, try to align their industry needs with their programs is to have those program-specific advisory meetings. Did we mention anybody that stood out as important to include in those meetings, and how to contribute more exposure or experience to students?
Are you asking for input from any group?
Yeah.
One of the things we talked about exposure was vertical alignment within our middle school to high school, maybe offering those exploration type of courses where they're exposed to different programs, but then also having that vertical alignment and that communication with the middle school where those programs are then expanded at the high school level. So students are able to further their career choice. And then on top of that, also being explicit with upcoming freshmen as far as what type of careers are offered at every program. And then just also using that type of language. I think a lot of times we get stuck on the academic education language and not the career language. So we don't make that connection. It's not explicit to students, and we assume that they understand what we understand. So I think a lot of things get lost in translation, and they take a class just because it's called an elective and they like it with no real direction as far as looking at a 4-year plan in career terms, instead of saying, I'm a freshman, I'm just going to get my diploma and graduate. Instead saying, I'm starting a welding program my freshman year. These are the type of we can just do a better job as administrators, being explicit about those type of things, and then also communicating with our lower level schools, like our middle schools.
Yeah, thank you, Gasper. I'm going to make a note to talk to you more about that. Yeah, because I think that that is a really very astute point. Any feedback on that stood out in your conversation from group one? Denise, John, Melissa, Patty, Shane, Toby?
Yeah, I think we hit that earlier, Susan.
Oh, you
where
did? Sorry. Okay.
We mentioned where you want deans from different colleges to be there. You want students. You want school administrators and the advisory committees and the community leaders, those type of people.
Oh, thank you. Okay, anybody from group two on maybe our last question here on how ways we can get young students invested in their future? Did anything stand out? And if people are camera shy, Sherry, is there anything in the notes?
Well, if any of our partners from Group 2 would like to chime in, one of the suggestions that came up that I found particularly valuable was the concept of breaking a 3-credit-hour dual enrollment class into smaller chunks, like 1 credit hour, which would be 15 clock hours of FaceTime with students, and that those could be stacked on top of each other so that an introduction could happen and a student could get a taste of what was being taught, and then they could make a decision whether they wished to go on and then take the next credit hour and the next credit hour. So that was a concept that I found particularly interesting in that part of the conversation. And then again, the talking about the value of the work-based learning and making that a priority for having time to do that and allowing students that time within their schedules. We talked a little bit about engaging students through social media, but recognizing that there are some policies and challenges that are related to that, but that might be another way to reach them. Let's see what else. Those were, I think, the primary things that I captured. The fields of study that came up and were discussed over and over again were things like welding, healthcare, culinary arts came up frequently. Subcategories of construction like sheetrock and concrete, and those are the kinds of things that might benefit from that 1 credit hour or 15 clock hour experiences. Metal fabrication. So those were the kinds of conversations that we were having related to that question.
Great, thank you, Sherry. Is there anything that anybody want to add from breakout room 2? I think that was our room. We're 2. I know, I'm tired too, Fred. Room 3, Gasper, Julian, Mary, Milo. And you don't have to, I'm just.
I'm sorry, repeat the question, please.
Oh, yeah, anything that stood out as far as the things that students would find engaging, to invest in their future.
Basically, one of the things we talked about, and it goes along with I think somebody mentioned, is creating opportunities for students in rural areas that they commonly would not be exposed to. I know even something as simple as providing trips. I know a lot of times they compete like in Skills USA. They're able to go to different places. Another example is our current media production is taking our students to a red carpet movie festival where their film that they've been working on all year will be shown. And if they're, I don't know if what they call it, but if they win, they're able to go to nationals with that. So it's exposure a lot of times to get students interested in careers that they might not be familiar with. And also us as educators providing them with those opportunities, that type of technology as well. And you said this earlier, kind of like a global mindset, I think is what you said, Susan.
Yeah, and if I remember in one of our pre-meetings, we talked about, I think Sherry brought up, or somebody brought up earlier, you know, how we can use the virtual environment now to have classes at different schools join together, and students from different schools and different cities can work on, you know, course-based projects together, or utilize resources from one school to another when it isn't available at that particular school. And I think that's a great idea as well. Okay. And Fred, we covered all the questions for your group. Is that correct? I just want to make sure, because you went through them and I want to.
We got through all the questions. Yes, we did.
Yeah, thank you, Fred. Does anybody have any last questions for me? I want to thank everybody for their time, their input, their thoughtfulness, and I'll put together a summary. I'll try to put things in a more readable format for responses, and hopefully we can use them to, you know, implement and talk about it further, some of these great ideas for some of our schools in Region G, because there is a desire amongst education leaders to continue having these regional conversations throughout the year. And I'll get together with you all regarding how often we would want to do that, whether we'd want to do that once a month, every other month, quarterly, just 3 times a year. But I think we make a lot of progress when we have an opportunity. Yes, I think I asked Fred, I sent a PDF that I was hoping you could upload to Google and then send a link. I'm sorry, I saw a chat. Somebody just posted something in the chat. Thank you, Gasser. Can we get a copy of your slides or your PowerPoint? I can send it by email, but there might be people on this call today that I don't have your emails.
So, let me drop that in the chat box right now for you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Fred.
Hold on just a second. Okay.
Yeah, so I hope it continues, and I hope you know, everyone who has attended, I'll get together with the administrators that I have connection with, and hopefully we'll be able to see you again in future meetings. Your input has been extremely valuable, because the work you do is really worthwhile. And I hope that we can all do something, you know, worth it. You know, it already is worthwhile, but I hope that we can help improve our CTE programs. So there it is in the chat, the PDF. And we would like, if you could, also Fred put in the chat an exit survey. It's just a couple questions from the CCRB and how we can facilitate, you know, meetings, and what your opinion is of this whole process and improve CLNA facilitation in future years. So I hope you'll all copy this link here. If not, I will include it in an email to you and hopefully get your feedback because we do want to make this worthwhile. We don't want to just have meetings to have meetings. So
Right.
I want to wish everybody a very good weekend. Please feel free to type any questions or I'll even hang out here, up until 5 o'clock or until everybody is gone. I'm willing to stay and talk, and I'm available anytime to anybody.